Oh, I'm supposed to feed the birds. Huh. Trying to decide if I was going to feed the birds. It's 5:30. I don't want to lose the sun. Let me get this done and then I'll feed the birds when I go out. Hi there, Marge here from Rose Grows in Harlem. It is Sunday, March 23rd, 2025, and I'm finally getting to cleaning my seedling pots. So these are the pots that I got from, what are they called? Botanic Interests. It's Epic Gardening, and American Tray Company is the one who is providing these. They're really great. I left these out all year, from last year when I was hardening off seeds to right now. Like they were outside until today. And they are not chipping, they are not, they're still pliable. Like you can still squeeze them. They're not brittle at all. So that was a year in the sunlight and in the freezing cold, because we had freezing temperatures for a few weeks, in January and February. So what I'm planning to do is I will empty, I have my little wheelbarrow over here. I'll empty the dirt out into there. I have already gone through these with my handy dandy grabber, because when I was moving these from the front or from the side yard to over here, I noticed that there were some spiders, and we have black widows here. I'm not used to that because I'm from New York, and that's pretty dangerous. So brown recluses and black widows are dangerous, but I don't want to kill them. So there are some seedling or some seed pots that I will not use. I just move them over to that side of the garden and I'll let them be. The Juros, I don't have really any, there's an overpopulation of Juros here in Georgia. It started here. I think they are now as far as Florida and as far as like Miami proper, and almost to New York, if not already. But let me go ahead and brush this off to get all the physical dirt. This is just water. I just want to, brush the dirt off that I can, then scrub it a little bit, and then later tonight I'll spray them with some alcohol, just some regular rubbing alcohol, and let that dry overnight. And then this week I'll start my seeds. So, oh, and the whole reason why I wanted to do this now was because I also wanted to go over my 2024 recap. Let me get my list. Okay, I knew I was forgetting something. So I have this cute little book that I wrote down my recap. So while I am going ahead and cleaning these out, I will talk about some of my things. So first things first, because I mentioned the Juros, I will talk about the spiders. So I am used to the spiders going away in the wintertime because it is, it gets cold up north, and there is plenty of time for the spiders to make their way, have their babies, do what they gotta do, and then die off so that we get a rest. But here, because the weather is so mild, the spiders are here almost indefinitely. And unfortunately, that means the Juros get really, really big. And I mean, these Juros are, if you leave them, they get humongous. Like I have a video and I'll put it in the description. If I remember to do a card, I'll do that too. But the Juros get really big and they're gross and they're like harmless. The only thing that I'm really mad at is that they don't eat mosquitoes. And I'm like, why? Why are you gonna come into my garden if you don't eat the mosquitoes? And And you know what? I have to say that's part of the reason why I don't enjoy the garden in the fall, because the spiders are everywhere, like everywhere. And that wasn't too bad to clean. I mean, I'm not scrubbing the heck out of these things. It's just enough to get the dirt off. Alcohol will take care of the rest. Yeah, but the spiders really discouraged me from coming outside. And it's unfortunate because like I had to really encourage myself to come out here today. I had mentioned in my other video that, you know, things in the world are getting really crazy, and I thought I didn't want to bring it into this channel, but you know what? It's going to affect the gardeners. It's going to affect the farmers. It's already affecting the farmers. But if you guys have not have not been following the news, the U.S. is in some trouble, and the current administration is doing some atrocious things, and they are abusing their power, and it's hurting the people that voted for them, which the people who didn't vote for him tried to warn them, but they're understanding now what we were talking about. Okay, so I don't know if you could see that on the video, but there is a bit of some sun bleaching there. It has not affected the flexibility, but there is a different, you could see the difference. That's a darker pink and that's a lighter pink. So that's where the tray came up to. So if you guys want to get that, just know that's an issue. But anyway, farmers are losing their subsidies, and if I'm sure anybody who has a homestead through some kind of loan that was the USDA loans, where you can claim a homestead and you can get funding for your house and your land, those people are affected too, because they're not sure where their funding is coming from and all that stuff. So I'm not going to go into it in depth, but this is definitely affecting us. So if you are not aware, please make yourself aware, because news media is not covering it. It's really bad. It's really bad. But if we work together and continue our communities, and make sure that we reach out, and if anybody needs help, give them a hand where we can. It'll be a fight, but I think we'll be okay. The most important thing is to make sure that you understand what's going on. You reach out to your representatives and you let them know what's affecting you and what your concerns are. If you're interested on how to do things like that, let me know. I have some resources that I could send you to, and but it really is all of our responsibility as American citizens to make sure that we're voicing our concerns. So yeah, and the spider situation, I'm sure, was probably tracked by the U.S. Some agencies. What is it? The forest and something? I don't know. But they might not be tracking them anymore because funding was cut to several different agencies. So just be mindful. Keep those farmers' almanacs, because we're going to have to go back to using the old ways of knowing what the weather's going to be like, what to expect, what to look for, and things like that. And if this were any other year, I would have been very hesitant about even talking about it, because people are like, oh, well, you sound like a conspiracy theorist. And it's like, no, things are happening right now, and the fact that nobody's talking about it, or I should say the people who are talking about it are not reaching the mainstream, is by design. So just try to keep aware of what's going on. Go to your town hall meetings, talk to your representatives, figure out ways to keep involved with the community. If you have kids, go to your PTA meetings, talk to your teachers, see how they're feeling, especially because the Department of Ed just took a hit. Yeah. So spiders. I had some, not severe, but I definitely had arachnophobia, and I have to say that working in the garden has helped me to look out for them more rather than be scared of them, which I'm thankful for. I was able to look in my little container, see that there was a spider there, and not jump. I didn't scream. I have videos of me screaming when I found a spider just because I was startled, but it has helped to see them every day, and know that they're helpers. They eat bugs. They eat the bad bugs, and just like possums are really good because they eat ticks, and they don't carry Lyme disease. They're not carriers, so they can't get Lyme disease from ticks, unlike animals like deer and other things that ticks might get hold on to. So I guess I can then go from spiders to, so spiders are a good garden friend. They can be a nuisance because they'll get all over your fruit trees, and you have to clear their webs so that you can get through, especially if you're doing a small garden like I have. But you wanna keep them around because they're helpful bugs. But let's go to, do I have garden critters on here? Well, I have cat and raccoon poop. That was unfortunate because I found out that I was trying to do some raw meat composting, and I know that you have to get it to a certain degree. I think it's like 185 or something to kill off bacteria, otherwise it gets really nasty. And I buried a sort of pork loin. I think it was a whole pork loin that had gone bad. I didn't use it in time, and I had to throw it out, unfortunately. But any food that's not used in the fridge just gets put in the compost. And I was doing that with mostly just vegetables. But I was like, let me try some meat, because I know that people say don't do it, but it's okay if you can get it up to temperature. Well, unfortunately, the raccoons found it. They dug it up and they pulled it out, and then they marked their territory by pooping in my compost bin. So that means I can't use that compost for anything now. Because if you are not aware, everybody tells you that raccoons have toxic feces. They don't always tell you why. So I looked this up because I wanted to see, is there any way to clean it? Is there any way to get around it? And it turns out raccoons carry ringworm that's specific to raccoons. And this ringworm is almost it's almost like impervious to everything. You really can't kill it except with heat. If you use chemicals, you have to call in somebody who is a professional because the chemicals they use to clear it out is illegal. So you need a special certificate, or you need to be able to, use it. You need to be trained on how to use it. And I don't want that stuff in my garden. So uh, what I decided to do is I will take an entire season and I'll continue to compost in there. I'm going to add a cover. I think I have some plywood somewhere, or I'll make a cover, or I'll just put some like plastic. That's what I did a few years ago. Actually, I don't know why I didn't continue to do that, because it just helps with the like that solarization. It just helps keep it really hot. And then I get compost in like a week. Like it's incredible. I throw a whole bunch of weeds in there, and then a week later I have like rich, delicious dirt. But because of the poop, I'm not going to use that compost at all this season. It is in a container, and nothing is nothing is downhill from it. So I'm not concerned that anything's going to get contaminated. But I can't use that. So I was thinking about a few different things. I would either throw some shrubs in there, or um, I would use that compost for shrubs, and then just put it around where, anywhere, because I do have flowers and shrubs that are not used, or not on the sides of the house, that have nothing to do with my vegetables or my fruit. So I might do that. I'm not sure. I think I'll just let it compost for a year, maybe even 2, and we'll see what happens with that. And then there is the cat poop, because Georgia is a huge bed for feral cats. We have saved a few. One of my current cats is a saved feral, and we love them. We have them. We call it TNR, which is a trap, neuter, and release. Especially the males, if you can get them, because they have a shorter turnaround time, and if you can get the males, like, one male can impregnate several females. So you try to get the male first if you can. And then if they're not too feral, we try to have them adopted off. So this way, sometimes there's an option to be a barn cat. So you keep the mice out the barn, or you can do a direct adopt. And that's really helpful for kittens and new animals, or new, because they do possums and other things that are not set to be re-released into the wild. And that's through. We have Planned Pethood of Georgia. There are several organizations that are used, but that's the one that we use, because we have friends who work there. So as far as the cat poop goes in the garden, I will definitely have to get some fencing to go up, and I'm trying to decide if I want to use chicken wire, or if I want to get some more hardware cloth, because last year I ended up using the wire mesh. I think it's called bird netting, and that worked because it kept them off. Oh, let's see, those spiders, I don't know. I don't know what that is. It looks like a mud dauber nest or something. Those are wasps. But I didn't like the fact that like bees might get caught in it. I didn't like I don't know. The netting just wasn't for me. Plus it's plastic. I know there are a lot of things that I have that are plastic. There are some things that, it's hard to find alternatives for, but I'm trying wherever I can. That's just clay. I think that must be a mud dauber. Some wasps were trying to get in there. Right, it's supposed to be permaculture. You're supposed to have all this access, and I'm not trying to prevent, chipmunks or squirrels or anything from going in there. It's just the cats. I just don't want the cats to poop on there. I am more than happy to share, whatever I create with the other animals, because that's part of the permaculture. Grow enough so that you can have some, you can share some, and that everything returns on its own. And I was joking with during Pescatarian Gardener's last live. She said she was talking about how the squirrels and chipmunks were like eating up all of her stuff, and I laughed and I said, I feed the squirrels because they leave me surprise corn. So that's cute. You get some volunteers. but but yeah, the dangerous things are like if I lose a crop because an animal ate it, I'm just happy that the animal ate it. I'm using this time now to learn. I'm using this time now to hone my skills, because when did I start this channel? I think I started this channel in 2021, or was it this winter? I think it might have been the winter of 2021. No, 2022. I'll have to look back. But I've learned a lot. Like, I know what type of tools I want to use. I know what kind of plants I want to grow. Like, definitely don't want to do okra again. It might be great for the yard. It might be great for composting, but I cannot with the slime. that's not my thing. But I grew it beautifully, and you know what? It is drought tolerant. The flowers are absolutely gorgeous. I think they're like a white and purple color, and it's fun to grow because they look great. But there's just no way I'm eating okra. It's just not for me. And so I know I'm not going to grow that. But what I'm dying to try to get to grow are cucumbers. And the first time that I grew anything in the side yard, I ended up clearing the whole area because there used to be trees and flowers and stuff there. And basically, I ended up putting some rectangle shaped grow bags there. And I feel like it either gets too wet or it doesn't retain the nutrients like it should, and my cucumbers never grow. They never grow, and it's kind of sad because I really want cucumbers so I can make pickles, and cucumber water and things like that. But I have not gotten the chance. So having a fence will allow the cats and raccoons to stop pooping where they're not supposed to. And we will move on to how the other veggies went along the fence. So I think 2 years ago now, I ended up getting these ceramic vases. You could, if you've ever been to a Mexican like flea market, there are these beautiful ceramic vases that are you can get them in different sizes. I actually got 3 sizes because my idea was to create an olla, which is the Spanish word for those it's like a water reservoir that you bury underground, and then the water will seep out when it's dry, and the water will, remain if it's wet. And that's supposed to be good for your plants, especially in dry areas, because you will have a reservoir, little water reserve under the dirt. And the problem I was having was that it kept it too wet. So I think they worked a little too well, and maybe I didn't need, I ended up putting in a 4 by like 1.5 to 2 foot space. I had 3 ollas, and they were about this big, this wide around, and then they went out like that. And that ended up being a little too much because I had these funky, funky mushrooms growing, and I think I showed them before. They have a funny name because they kind of represent the male genitalia, and they smell really funky. It's very weird, but um, because of those oyas, it was interesting to look at because the all the roots would collect and gather around the oya. So when I took it out the dirt and there was the imprint in the dirt of the oya, the you could see the roots just circled around, and you just saw roots like reaching to every part so it could get the water, but then they weren't anywhere else. So I was like, okay, so maybe this is not, either it wasn't dispersing the water thoroughly enough, and I'm just wondering if maybe it's just not a regular ceramic, like maybe it was treated with some kind of what do they call it, not a lacquer, what do they call it, oh, I took ceramics and I used to remember these things. um, when you coat it with what's similar to a lacquer, but there's a specific name for it, I forget. um, but basically it might be coated with something that doesn't allow the water to do what it's supposed to do and disperse. So I took them out last year. I put um, some more dirt, some more compost in the beds. I prepped them, and then I was like, okay, let's grow some carrots. Let's grow some onions. Did I put onions in this year? I think I did carrots, beets. I had 4 in the first one. I had carrots, beets, garlic, I think, and something else. And it turned out, you know what? It didn't work. Nothing really came up. The carrots kind of came up, but I also wasn't watering well, so I think that's also part of the problem. I should have a whole thing, and I think I do. Okay, that'll be my next. That'll be my next topic. Is watering. I have to make a note of each one of these things I'm talking about. Cat and raccoon poop. And right now I'm on veggies along the fence. Okay, so carrots just came up a little bit, but I never got any carrots. The beets never came up, or I might have gotten a shoot. And now this was direct sowing, so this was total experiment to see if I put something into the ground or into the raised bed, what would happen. And it grew a little bit, but I don't think it was compacted enough. I don't think there was enough water retention, so the seeds did not do well. Now, what does do well were things like sunflower seeds and other things, but directly in the dirt. Like we have red clay here, and it retains so many nutrients because it's not being used. So one of the things that I thought I may do is either cut a hole in those fabric bags. Like I'll empty the dirt, cut a hole in the bottom, and then refill it with dirt so that, you know, that dirt from the bags will kind of be like the topsoil, and then the roots can really dig down deep and get access to all those nutrients, because the things that were growing last year did not grow nearly as well as the things that I had planted years before, and that was straight in the dirt. I had potatoes growing, I had garlic growing, I had sunflowers just shot up, and they were mammoth sunflowers, so they were 6+ feet tall, and they loved the dirt. I might also just do row of corn. I mean, we'll see. But okay, that's almost one tray. Now see, this is from either Michael's or Joann's. You can see what's where it's been. That's the sticker. See, it's very sun bleached, so these are not meant for outside, but whatever. So there is that. I also tried to grow cucumbers and um, peppers in the side, and those also didn't start up. I have to cover my peppers because I guess it doesn't, they weren't old enough to have the capsicum created yet, and everybody nibbled my seedlings right down. I covered them with the little, you know how they have the little picnic domes so that you could put uh, a mesh net or a like a metal net over your plate, like if you're eating at a picnic or outside. So I bought a bunch of those from the dollar store, and I put those over my plants, and that worked for a little while, but they were still too young because I went out one day and they ate them right down, and that was the army moth, because I saw the little caterpillar and I was like, oh man, you ate all my peppers, my jalapenos and my banana peppers. So another reason to create some kind of fencing around it. And I might need insect netting just until they get big enough. Or what I'll do is this year, and I started late because it is March, um, but I will wait until they get to be of a certain size, and then I'll put them out there, which is fine because it gives me time to clean up the side yard. And let's see, what else? Um, and then I had zinnias, and I always, did I buy those this year? Yes, I bought them this year because I never got a chance to take them from the seedlings to the pots. I ended up buying zinnias and either salvia, and I put those on the hanging baskets around the hummingbird feeders. So those are the last things that were. Oh well, no, I'll get to the other plants in a minute. But this way, it'll attract the hummingbirds. And I would, once I get into the habit of doing some winter sowing so I can have uh, blooms ready for like now, because we have some cold. The low today is 41, and I think we went down to the 30s last week. So the plants wouldn't survive. But I love to have things like zinnias and I think it's dilapidemia. I think that's the name of it. But they're like these red trumpet flowers. And oh my goodness, the hummingbirds love them. Absolutely love them. And I make sure to put those by the bird feeders so that they have some natural flowers. And then uh, nectar that I make, which is just white sugar, just pure sucrose and water, and that is a 1 to 4 ratio. It's 1 part sugar to 1 part water. I'm sorry, to 4 parts water. So if you used a cup of sugar, you would need 4 cups of water, and that's the ratio that makes it similar to nectar that they get in the flowers. And last year I did not get a lot of hummingbirds, but I also wasn't. We traveled a lot last year, so I probably was not as diligent as I should have been to keeping those feeders filled up. So hopefully they got it from others in the neighborhood. But that's the way it goes. Okay, so let's see. Anything else along the side? Okay, then I had onions. I tried my best to have onions growing in those little fake, those resin whiskey barrel things. And they didn't do great last year. And I think, again, that's to my watering technique. And you know what? I'll do watering after I go over all the rest of them because everybody, I think, was pretty much affected by my neglect, which is sad and unfortunate, but it happens. Things get in the way, and unless you prioritize gardening, other things are going to get in the way. But my onions did not really come up last year, or they had little tiny sprouts and then they went away. So I don't think I kept it watered properly. But they came up this year, which was amazing. I was like, oh man, I know that they said that onions sometimes take 2 years to come up, but I did get sprouts last year. So I have at least 4 onions, I think. And I don't even know if the labels are still there. They may not be there because everything blew away. We had some high winds and tornado warnings and crazy stuff like that. So, but yeah, I had 3 kinds of onions. I had yellow onions, white onions, and red onions. And we'll see what comes up this year, and if they fully bulb, that would be pretty cool. And what else? And then I have the okra, and I have a rescue. This I'm gonna take a moment to say I cannot wait to watch this video because the neighbor has, I think that's a dogwood tree. I don't know what kind of tree it is, but it always reminds me of anime because the petals just flirt down, like they flurry down. So I hope I look like an anime heroine. That would be awesome. But now I'm interrupting myself. Let's see, what was I talking about? The okra and oh, okay. So I had a rescue blueberry plant. I don't know if that survived because that definitely did not get the water it deserved. And I have to stop going to the orphan section because I get so excited that I see these plants. It's a great deal, and I hate to admit it, but I just take them to my garden to die. I'm not even going to pretend like they're getting a better life and then dying. So I have to stop doing that because I just get excited, and then I want to plant all the things and do all that stuff. I'm gonna go get another tray. I'll be right back. Okay. Okay, so that was veggies along the fence. Okay, then we have the tomatoes in containers. Those were very, very successful. Now, all I ever wanted to do when I started this channel back in 2011 was to grow roses. I was like, wouldn't it be cool if I could create a trellising rose hallway in my Harlem apartment? Wouldn't that be cool? And let me tell you, I obviously now it's obvious to me. I knew nothing about plants because it never occurred to me that I couldn't just trellis a rose in the dark. I mean, I had light coming through the windows, but not in the hallway. I mean, I had a window from my bathroom that looked out the hallway, down the hallway, and that was pretty much it. So what made me think that I could have a rose with its viney stuff trellised throughout my apartment? I don't know. But it's the imagination that counts, right? So I started my journey then to go ahead and I promise this is getting back to the tomatoes. I started my journey to see what I could grow. So I think I went on eBay. I ended up getting some rose seeds, and I went right to YouTube and tried to see if anyone else had created a video on how to grow roses from seed, because I knew that seed packets have certain instructions and you're supposed to do certain things, and I knew that roses were finicky because why else would there be you know famous rose competitions and people competing for having the best rose and blah blah blah. So I was like, let me look to see how to do this, and I found that back in 2011, there weren't a lot of videos talking about growing roses from seed. There were like maybe one or two that I could find. It basically said, you know, keep it in an enclosed area, make sure you've got kind of like a greenhouse effect going on, keep it warm if you can, because at that time I don't think heating pads existed, not like they do now. And you know, keep it in the window, keep it in a sunny place, and you know, just make sure that you check on it every few days. So I did that, and I ended up growing some mint. I must have had mint or something in the mix of, what was it, in the garden, in the like potting mix that I was using, because I was so excited. I got something to pop up. Something was green. I'm like, oh my goodness, I got a rose. Yeah. And then I was wondering why it smelled a certain way, and it turned out it was a mint plant. So I was like, okay, let me see what else I can try to grow, because I had house plants and I had other things that I was showing people. And because I was looking for videos on roses and seeds at that time, the algorithm was, you know, truer to what you actually want to see. And I was shown all these videos of people getting seeds from the food that they eat. So I was like, oh, that's really cool. I would love to see how to get free seeds. Free seeds. You still have to buy the fruit, right? Unless there's somebody you know that already has it and you can get the seeds from them. So I started with tomatoes and cucumbers and all this other stuff. And let me tell you, if you had not gardened in your childhood or like in your life as often as some of these gardeners have, and you see a little sprout come up from the dirt, that for me was like the most magical thing I had ever seen. I was like, oh my God, I want to do this all the time. So I was doing tomatoes, I was doing lemons, I was doing apples, I was doing anything I can get my hands on for a seed. I was doing that because it was actually cheaper to go out and buy um, the fruit or the vegetable, and then you know, get the seed that way. One second, I gotta fix my chair. Oh my goodness. There we go. Okay, sorry about that. I had to fix my chair because it was sinking into the ground and I knew I was gonna fall back. But so I started growing everything, and when I found out that everybody was saying, "Oh, your seedlings are leggy, you're not getting enough sunlight," I was like, "Okay, well, I could do grow lights, so you know, let me get a big friggin' light from the like, you know, light bulb, like one of those grow light bulbs from the light store, and you know, I'll do that." But when I plugged it in and put it on, I was like, "There's no way I can go to work." Because at that time, I mean, everybody was working from the office back then. Um, at that time, I was like, okay, it's a fire hazard to have this on when I'm not at home. So I never got to that. So I gave up. I stuck to my rescued roses, because even back, oh, they're fighting. Two, I think those were crows. Um, yeah. So I just started doing seedlings just so I could learn more about them and, you know, see how far they could go. I tried potatoes, which was a really cool thing to have in the house because it grows really fast and then it dies back. But I never got potatoes. So I don't know if that was because they needed to be pollinated and I wasn't pollinating them, or what. But it was a very pretty um, it was a very pretty plant to have inside an apartment because it was big like a tree, but then it died back. So that was pretty cool. Um, but tomatoes were always my favorite because they smelled good, they looked good, and I wanted to know more about them. So fast forward to 10 years later, when I was able to, or actually way more, I started the channel in 2011. Oh, no, I guess almost 10 years, 9 years. And then or 8 years. I started in 2011, and then I moved to Georgia in 2019. So 8 years later, I was like, oh man, I've got some room to grow some veggies. Let me grow some tomatoes. So the first year I got here was in the summertime. So I couldn't do much then, but there was a Rubbermaid low profile big container, kind of like the water trough that they use for horses and pigs and stuff like that. So I ended up using that, and I made my witchy trellis, and I used some of the branches and twigs and big trunks that I was pulling out of the ground to make a really cool woodsy looking, witchy looking trellis. And I loved it. I have pictures of it. I'll probably try to find it and put it up here. I've done it. I've definitely put it up here before. And and it was so cool. It looked so awesome, and I was very careful with my seeds. I had them all on a in a grow. Did I have them? How did I do that the first year? I think that first year I had them in. Hmm. Okay, so this is what happened. Because I had space and we had mosquitoes, I would buy citronella, and we also got flowers. Yes, we got flowers to transplant into the front yard. That was the first thing that I got to do, because I was like, there's no way I'm wasting any time gardening here. I couldn't do veggies right away. So my boyfriend and I ended up going to, I think it was Home Depot. We got a whole bunch of plants. We got some lantana, we got some verbena, we got, I want to say foxglove, but I don't remember. There were these beautiful, tall purple flowers, and they were kind of bell shaped, um, or maybe grape hyacinth or something. Man, I really don't remember, but they're beautiful, and I wanted kind of like a rainbow. So I had marigolds, I had the verbena, I had the orange marigolds, the yellow lantana, the red verbena, these purple, uh, let's call it the purple bellflowers, and I also for the blue I planted, oh, what is it called? Borage. And I think out of all the seeds that I planted, only like one came up, and it was very small. So I don't think I prepared the soil well enough for it, because it was probably just a bunch of topsoil and I needed way more compost. Um, but because I was so adamant about having flowers there, my boyfriend then got me an indoor greenhouse with two shelves, and that's what I use now. And I have tricked that thing out. It's got grow lights, it's got the reflectics, so that the light is shining more, and it will start seeds in like 3 days. It's amazing. I love it. I highly recommend getting it. Try to get one on eBay, and just having a space dedicated for seeds is, if you can do it, because I know that's my privilege talking, but it was amazing. It was a gift, and it was fantastic. I was this close to buying another one. I'm like, no, no, no. All I have to do is move everything in there that's being stored, and then I can use the entire thing for seedlings, and then I'll have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. I'll have 12 spots that are like 2 feet by maybe 1 foot. They're very narrow, but it fits one of these trays perfectly. So I put 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 on one side, so it's good enough for 12 of these, which is a lot, because this holds 72, right? 1, 2, 3, 4. That's 16 times 3, 16, 30. Yeah, you do the math. I think it's 72, because it's like a 72 tray if you get like the Ferry Morse seed starting kit or whatever. So, but anyway, so he got me that, and the first thing that I started were tomatoes, and I babied them like crazy. I was down here every morning checking to see, I put the cover on them when I first started. I took the cover off when they were getting too big. And then when I was hardening them off, literally took forever, but that's the way I should do it every year. I have a really bad habit of doing something once, and like the first time I do it, it's great. I get it exactly right, and then I never repeat it because I'm like, oh, well, maybe I can change this, maybe I could change that. It's like, no, Marge, do what you did the first time. So that's what I have to do. I have to take my time hardening off plants. Um, I'm starting late this year, but my tomatoes grow really fast, and this year, well, in years past, I wanted to create a mechanism that allowed me to lower my lights, but my lights are 4 feet 4 feet long, and I couldn't do it just to one section and not the other. So what I ended up doing, if you haven't heard, Joann's is going out of business, so they're having crazy sales, which is not really sales because they're really expensive, but I did get some foldable storage buckets. What are they called? I forget what they're called, but they're basically, you could fold them so that they lay flat, so they're easy to store. And then if you unfold them, they become a container that you can grab stuff in. So I got a bunch of those so that I could, adjust these trays to whatever size, to whatever height I need to be away from the to be either closer to or further away from the light. Because if I start the seedlings really close to the light, they should get stronger at a shorter distance and not be so leggy, because they don't have to stretch up for the light and then they get really weak. If I can get them strong from the beginning, and gardeners who are really good at that are like Georgia Peachnut and Lisa's Gardening. It's Miss Lisa and Miss Gail. Miss Gail has the Garden Peachnut, and Miss Lisa has Gardening with Lisa. That's her channel name. I'll put them up. And they're really good at making really stout, like really, really stout seedlings. So by the time, when it's time to harden them off, they're already deep green and really tall and ready to go. So you don't really have to worry about that too much. So this, or last season, my tomatoes had another experiment, because I used my Tidy Cats. I clean these out, and as long as they've not touched cat poop, only the cat litter, the clean litter. Once the litter is done, I bring these downstairs into my garden area, and I use them for everything. I use them to hold the bird food. I use them for my raspberries, which I thought died, but what did I learn last year? Raspberries die back. And then what happens in the year? You just cut the canes off and they just pop up all over again, which is amazing. Okay, I'm back. I had a lovely visit from my boyfriend, so he's working on computer stuff and UPS stuff while I'm working in the garden. Okay, so the last thing I was talking about, I don't remember. What was I on? Oh, the tomatoes. So I think I was talking about how I can't do anything right the second, third, fourth. Like, I can't repeat a really good first try for some reason. It boggles my mind. I think it's mostly because I want to try to make the thing that I did better when I shouldn't. I should just follow the thing that I did the first time and then be successful again. But I don't. I need to be creative. I'm very bad at following rules. Or I should say, I'm bad at following steps. It's not my strong point. Um, so my first year, my tomatoes were great. They were really strong, and then every year after that, they've been like okay. Um, but even when I have shorter yields, I still have so many tomatoes I don't know what to do with, because I'm not in the mindset um, to can them yet. I still have to learn about pressure canning. I'm not making like salsa or other things. I normally just like roast the tomatoes or have them. Oh man, they're so good with balsamic vinegar and mozzarella. Yeah, I do that. And basil. That's really good. And the basil I grow. Um, okay, so the tomatoes were fine. The only issue that I found is that I grew them in these tidy cat containers, and while that helped a lot with keeping the moisture, because if you deeply water tomatoes and then let them get dry and then deeply water them again, that's what causes that splitting. They just burst because it's just too much. So uh, what that um, what the containers did was it really helped to prevent them from getting too dry. But again, what did I do? I did not water them well, um, or I didn't water them thoroughly on a consistent basis. Um, I've had uh, what are they called? The Not seeping hoses. They're like the watering hoses, the ones that like the whole thing is just filled with holes and then the water just runs through it. I've had that set up for them before, and that's been good. But I think as long as very intentional about watering all of my crops, I'm fine. Like the the trees will be great like that. The tomatoes will be great like that. Even that's probably what happened with the cucumbers. I just wasn't consistent in doing that. But basically that will. Oh, I feel something on my neck. Spiders are always crawling all over me. Um, so yeah, so that's my tomato story. That was really good. What issue I had was that when it was watered, I was getting that ammonia smell. And I researched that a little bit, and I found out that it was anaerobic composting was happening in those containers. And that was because last year I took a bag of what was probably just compost and I shoved it in one of these tidy cat containers, and I didn't keep the bag. So when it was time to use it, I had no idea what it was. I didn't know if it was mushroom compost. It wasn't like black cow manure compost because it didn't smell like that. It smelled like dirt. So it was probably mushroom compost. But I didn't amend it with anything, and that's silly because the first thing I normally do is I add vermiculite and perlite. That's great for my seed starter mix. I do compost, vermiculite, and perlite, and that is hardy enough and airy enough to actually make my seedlings grow strong. And again, I only did that really the first year. After that, I'm trying to find out different ways to do it. So I just have to go back to that. I say that, but what happens? I have a brick of cocoa coir. So I might do cocoa coir, compost, perlite, vermiculite, but we'll see. I don't know. Because I also don't do the sterilization of my soil. So I end up getting, all the gnats and everything because I just don't want to be bothered with the hot water or baking my soil, or it's set in a space that's not going to bother me, and I just set up the sticky traps, and that's okay. It's not horrible. Like I'm not putting them, if they were on my dining room table, then I probably would have done that. but they're in the basement and it doesn't bother me. So as long as it doesn't bother my boyfriend, then it's okay because he works in the basement. Let's see what else. So that was the tomatoes in the back. Did I talk about that? I'll add that because I did not. Oh yes, tomatoes and containers. Okay. So then the other part of the container were, or the other plants that were in the container were my oregano, which comes back strong every year, basil, and I tried to do sage this year, but I don't think I let it get tall enough before I plant it because it's overtaken by weeds normally. But the basil volunteers every year. It's crazy. It's a very hardy plant, and it comes back every year. I can just drop seeds, and it's almost like a mint plant. It'll basically start wherever you put it. So I try to have my little area for herbs. I love basil, and oh my god, I love oregano. I use it for my pork chops. It's delicious. And then the last container on the side are my strawberries and my walking onions. And those were also it's a shame because those were also victim of the raccoon and cat poop. And I think what I will do is I will wait for the onions because they're walking onions. I think they're also known as Egyptian onions, but I'm not sure of the connotation of the name. So they're walking onions where they bulb up at the top, and then they get so heavy that they fall over, and then they replant themselves. So you can eat every part of the plant. You could eat the part that's in the ground, the bulb in the ground. You can eat all of the shoots, which is delicious. You just chop them up like chives, or you can eat the little bulbs that are at the top, and it all tastes like onions, and it's so delicious. Let's see. And the strawberries, they did okay, but because they were pooped on, I think I am going to solarize that area and just make it, I'll leave that and the composting bin I'll leave that for a year. Just I'm not going to deal with that. And let's see what else. And I think that's it for the side yard. So I will go ahead and talk about irrigation and watering. So I had mentioned that I did not do the Oyas this year, and Georgia rain is interesting because it normally comes in heavy waves. So you'll have lots of rain for days at a time. Oh, I should be wearing a mask doing this. You'll have lots of rain for days at a time, and then it'll be dry for like a week and a half. So, okay, I'm good on this. So, you really have to be on top of the watering, because if you're not, your plants are going to suffer. And last year was just an all-out bum year for me. So I did not want to come out to the garden. And I had mentioned this in some of the comments or on the lives, and I didn't want to like bring anybody down or anything, but I just was not getting any kind of joy from the garden like I used to. And I think that was because I let it get too bad. It was really weedy, and it seemed like it was overbearing. And what ended up happening was that I just let it get worse, and then it gets so bad that you just don't want to do any of it. So I just neglected the poor garden. but I wanted to make sure that I wasn't beating myself up over it because I am only able to do as much as I can. So I used that as a learning moment, and I said to myself, okay, well, let's see what happens to the garden when you just leave it alone. So from September till 2 weeks ago, because I think 2 weeks, March 9th, I think was when I came back to the garden to give the garden walkthrough. That was my time to come through, look at the garden. And you know what I found out? Plants were fine without me. So that experiment had a happy ending. I had some trees that didn't make it, which, you know what? Even if I had attended to them, I wonder if it would have had the same outcome, because it was my understanding that trees that were meant to have cold snaps or needed to stratification, I think it's called, where they have to be dormant when the weather is cold, are really only good on their own in colder climates. Things like apples, things like winter crops, broccoli, lettuces, other things like that. Unless you're out there protecting them and really paying attention to how well they're doing, it's much better to have a colder climate, because what happens when you try to grow lettuce in a warm climate? It bolts because it thinks it's summertime and its season is over, and it's really hot here. I am excited to grow lettuce, by the way, but I think I'll only grow it inside because it's very easy to control. But I don't know, I just like the way butter crunch sounds. My favorite lettuce is iceberg, but there's like absolutely no nutritional value in iceberg lettuce. But yeah, so things that kind of suffered because of my irrigation, probably my peppers and cucumbers. My okra didn't care. My herbs didn't care. They are tolerant of a little neglect, but they're perennials. Nope, sorry. My oregano is a perennial. Basil reseeds itself, so it comes back every year because it has seeds in the ground. I really want to get my sage plant, and raise a glass, pour one out, have a cup of tea. R.I.P. to my was it laurel? My sweet bay laurel plants. I bought these plants at my favorite garden center, the Family Tree Garden Center. I had been looking for like a year and a half for bay leaves. They're sweet bay laurels or something like that. I think it's like Lauralis something. I was looking forever for these plants. And then one day at the end of fall, I ended up going to my favorite store, and boom, right there was a bay laurel plant. I couldn't believe it. And I ended up getting two of them, and I should have put them right in the ground. Immediately, I should have put them in the ground. But I left them in the pots, and I left them out, and I didn't water them, so now they're dead. So definitely something that I learned from last year. Stop buying plants if I'm not going to put them in the ground like within 48 hours. Because I have probably wasted more money in dying plants because I just left them in their original container than trying to take care of them and getting a harvest. Okay, I have 2 more trays to go. I hope I can make it while the sun is. If not, then I will do what I can. But let's see what's next. because otherwise I'll ramble on forever. And thank you for being here. This channel is really meant for me to document what I'm doing so I can look back, and when I have these beautiful fruit trees, I have something to look back on and say, oh yeah, I was at that point. Um, but it turns out other people like to watch that too. So I appreciate that. um, I have also been considering creating I don't want to say a membership because that's what everybody's kind of doing, but at least setting up like a donate page. I kind of did. I set up a buy me a coffee. I said buy me a seedling, and I have it in the description. But I've not actively started asking about it yet. I want to kind of like set up a web page and set up something that I can kind of give back to people. Um, but I mean, if you're interested in seeing something specific, or I might even start, because I'm going to make another video on my pruning, because I had two videos that I wanted to make this weekend, and I only got to one of them. I either wanted to make a pruning video for all of the trees that I'm going to go through, or I wanted to do my recap video. And I figured, okay, well, I have to wash these trays anyway, so why don't I do a recap video while I'm washing the trays, that then I can get two in one. And when I went through all of my trees, I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna have so many trees. So once I do my pruning video and I get a final count, if I have cuttings that root, I might consider selling those. So we'll see. But anyway, um, that should be coming sometime next week. Let's see, what else do I, okay, so I talked about watering. Oh yes, I was talking about what did and didn't survive the watering. Most of my trees were fine. They're getting the water they need just from the Georgia rains. And I think that's better, because I would rather, again, we're trying to do permaculture, or I'm trying to do, a sustainable thing where I'm not out here watering all the time. So if the things that died back are the things that are fussy, or that they need a very specific, you know, attention regiment, I don't want to have to do that. I want to set stuff up, companion planting, and planting close together, and making sure I have mulch here and things there. I want to make sure that they're able to survive on their own. If I go away for a week, I don't want to come back and find out that my trees are dead. And I tried some like citrus and some other things, and I really don't think I'm interested in plants that are lower than my grows, or that require a higher growing zone. I'm in 8A right now, and I would much prefer to have plants that are either native or that are okay in this environment. And so far, my peaches are fantastic. My pears are good. My plums are fantastic. I have a nectarine that's like blowing up because I think it blew through the grow bag. My apples, I have some apples are okay. Some apples did not make it. So, but that's good because the Granny Smith is good, and some other ones are okay. My cherry trees are good. My roses are wonderful. My raspberries are good. What else? What else? My elderberries are doing great. My pawpaw has not woken up yet. Um, yeah, so I'm very excited about that. So those are my fruit trees in general, and I am excited to do a pruning video that specifically talks about. I'm going to go through the book, the fruit tree book. I have to go in and make notes to show what notes, and highlight where I got it from, because I'm going to go in and trim like sucker branches. I'm going to go in and trim anything that's on a low branch, and each one of those cuts will be put into a container with some water. I got to put a little what do they call it, a label, so that I know, this is a pear tree, and this is this tree, and this is that tree, because labeling, I'm really bad at labeling, and I want to make sure I do that right. um, okay, let's see. The strawberries, So I kind of covered the ones that were in the side yard. The strawberries on in the backyard, they're great. They're actually spreading, and I'm happy with that. It's a great cover crop. Um, and right now, I'm not. I think I will grow like a big container of strawberries and put those someplace else, and maybe keep those fenced off, because when the strawberries come out, if I'm not out here right away, the chipmunks and the squirrels get to them and the birds get to them, which I'm happy about. I want them to enjoy some of my harvest. I want them to enjoy the blackberries. I want them to enjoy other things. So if there's something that I want, I might, put them someplace else, or keep them in an area where only I can get to them, but I still want again, the permaculture. I want all the animals to enjoy this. Um, so this is strawberries. So those are doing really well. And those were my bare root strawberries from, I think it was Fruit Tree Sale, which just finished this year. The Atlanta Foodwell Alliance puts together Fruit Tree Sale. I think they start in like either November or December, where you could put in your order and then you pick them up in February. And it's so fantastic. Like they give you an opportunity to buy trees for other people in Atlanta, because they're trying to create a huge orchard in Atlanta in different parks and stuff like that. And I'm all for growing fruit trees. So yes, I love that. Um, they also are, I think they're also a part of the Soil Fest. I think they're part of the Soil Fest or the Soil Festival, and I'll have more details on that later. But that is what I have to say about the strawberries and the trees. What does that say? What was successful versus not? I kind of went through that. I'll have more details on which trees were successful when I do the pruning video, and I went through all the vegetables and stuff like that. Um, the hummingbirds I kind of spoke about. There weren't as many hummingbirds last year, but that was mostly because of me not filling the. Uh, Although I wasn't outside looking at the hummingbirds as often as I was the first year. The first year I was obsessed. I was like coming out like all the time and looking for the hummingbirds. This year they were probably there, and I just wasn't out there. Um, let's see. The indoor greenhouse has been fantastic. I had mentioned that. Uh, Last season. I think I just added another row of the grow lights, which are technically just LED lights that are, I think they're like 52 or 5200 Kelvin. Um, I'll get that information and put that in the description. But yeah, really easy to grow my stuff. And I actually have other plants that once I get my seedlings started, because I start a lot of seedlings and I end up just, I neglect them, yes, but I end up having way too many. So someone had mentioned that you can just do a plant sale, and I might set that up. But that depends. And then, just do like $1 a plant or something ridiculous like that, because if I have so many, I'm like, here, just take them. Um, so that's an option. My outdoor greenhouse, I went over that on my last walkthrough of the garden. That I want to attach hardware cloth to it, and then I want to grab my grapes, see what state they're in, and then if they're okay, then I want to train the grapes up there so that I could have my grapes there. I thought about doing loofahs too, but for now, we'll just see if I can get the hardware cloth up there, because I have to attach it to the frame, and then we'll see what happens. So that's the outdoor greenhouse. But I did mention in the other video that that was was the company. I used to have an affiliate link, but I took all my affiliate links down because I just didn't want to have to go through them. If I buy something, try it, and I like it, I'll tell you what it's all about. Keeping up with the links and everything was not sustainable, not for me. And that was through Quick Tent. I think it's QUICTENT. It was like $125 for a 12 long by either 6 or 7 wide, like 12 feet by 6 feet. Like that's incredible. Um, and it comes with a plastic uh, cover, and that's okay. But it's really windy where I am in our backyard, and it just gave the spiders a perfect place to hunt and create big webs. Like I had a spider that was like this big. Maybe I'll link my spider video, but that was my outdoor. Okay, and I guess the last bit of the recap is, how did the dirt lockers do? The dirt lockers are amazing. Um, it gives me a fantastic way to get down into the garden. I'm not slipping and sliding all over the place anymore. Um, and I have maybe about 30% covered in dirt lockers that are filled with topsoil. And then the rest over here, I've not gotten to yet. And what I've noticed is that anything that's over there with the topsoil, and then I put these, do I have one here? No, there's one over there. I have these square stepping, they're like, they're like stepping stones, but it's made out of like resin, or it's like a spongy, like silicone material. They're rubber. They're like rubber stepping stones. So I fill the dirt locker with topsoil, and then I put the stepping stone on top of that. And so far, there have been no weeds. And what I ended up doing was I dug through the topsoil, I planted what I wanted in there, and then I put the topsoil back, and that acts as the mulch, which is amazing. So no nutrients are on the top level. It's just, sticks and whatever. Um, so this side of the garden is filled with weeds. Like the dock is coming up already, and I have trees and bushes and all types of things growing. And I have some trees from the neighbors that I have to cut back because I want them out of my yard so that I don't have to worry about I don't even go over there because the spiders love to make webs. Ugh, it's gross. Um, yeah, so the sun is going down and I still have 2 trays to go. So I think what I'll do is I'll end this video here. Um, I I had a lot of fun last year learning about what's successful, what's not successful. Um, I am nervous this year about food security, not for us, but for people in general. Food banks are getting their food delivery canceled because farmers are not being subsidized by the government anymore to provide food for food banks. So I am asking anybody in the garden community who is out there, if you're not doing so already, if you have surplus, consider giving it to a food bank, or if you have a community circle or whoever, if you go to church, or if you have other places where there's some kind of soup kitchen, consider giving your surplus to those places because they're going to need it. um, Consider what you want to eat. um, we are very uh, we are very simple as far as what we buy all the time from the supermarket. Green beans. Oh, that was another thing that I was very successful. Green beans all over the place. They grow anywhere. And they're also nitrogen fixers, green beans and peas. So we buy green beans, broccoli, um, corn, like the mix, the peas, carrots, and what have you. And then we love potatoes. Uh, and those are the things that I'm going to be growing this year. I mean, obviously, I have my fruit trees, but if there's a problem at the supermarket where I can't get those things, I want to make sure that we have vegetables to eat, that we have beans to eat. We're keeping up with, our what do they call them? Complete proteins. So, when a lifetime ago, when I was married, I kept a vegan household, and I was learning all about nutrition and making sure that we were eating good vegan food, not ultra processed foods and things like that. Um, but if you have rice and beans, not like string beans, but like a lima bean or pinto or kidney bean, that makes a complete protein. And when you don't have meat available, or if you don't have eggs available and things like that, you can get by on rice and beans. So I want to make sure that I have that. This weekend I spent collecting some more canning supplies. I ended up getting these really nice half-gallon jars, glass jars, ball glass jars, and this week I say I want to do it, but I don't know if I'll actually get to it. I do want to clean out my pantry because there's a lot of stuff in there that's a little out of date. Some things has to be rotated, and there's some things that because of the store we bought them from came with some moths. So I want to make sure that that's all cleaned out. I've got, everything is sealed away in a jar, and we have that ready to go. So, but as the sun is like calling me to go inside, but I do want to get some feed for these really noisy squirrels. They're waiting for their food. The blue jays are here. I haven't seen a cardinal yet today. Yeah, they're calling. They're calling. So let me feed these crazy animals. Um, Thank you for coming along. I'm just gonna cover this up and spray down my seed trays with some alcohol, and maybe I'll be back for tomorrow. Thanks for joining along, and I'll see you in the next video.